Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. After a couple weeks of live crowds, we head back to the Apex for UFC Vegas 59. Our card's headlined by top 10 light heavyweights. Thiago Santos taking on Jamahal Hill. While Santos been fighting cream of the crop, Jamahal Hill is kind of the new contender in town, man. I'm expecting a good main event. In the co-main event, Striker's Delight between welterweights Vicente Luque and Geoff Neal. And then season really wasn't that exciting, but we can't leave out the tough finales there. We have the heavyweight fight between Zach Palga and Muhammad Usman, and then the women's flyweight fight between Brogan Walker and Juliana Miller. I think we got 12 fights on tap, man, so excited to get through, find some spots we like, see where we can make some money. We're both coming off a bit of a head-to-head week, but best case scenario, we both came out in the green, so we can't complain there. I cut into my ass whooping of the casual cap that I'm taking, and bright side, man, we didn't fall into the plus 240 trap on Juliana Pena. We knew she was outclassed everywhere. I thought we made some good reads, and give you a quick second to go through 277.
Yeah, man, I'm always okay with wearing the casual cap if we're both in the green for the week. Looking over your card, the Brandon Moreno was your biggest bet of the night. Looked awesome, man. Got the finish. It was pretty close, but I think he solidified he is the better fighter that night. You also got a great number on Sergey Pavlovich at plus 100. He beat the line by a long shot, and he looked every bit of it. I don't think it was an early stoppage. I think especially in the moment with those big heavyweights and seeing Derek Lewis fall, I don't blame him. Exactly. I don't blame the ref. Let's see. The
Pantoja.
Yeah, the Alexander Pantoja. 1.5 at minus 156. Another good line, and he looked amazing, man. You ended up the night plus 5.39 units, 36% return on investment. Solid night. Looking to keep that one rolling. And looking over at my card, leader of the Hamdi Army, right? I don't know, kind of a meme fight, but I do think that the price tag was good to get him at plus money. It was a 50-50 fight, in my opinion.
Open the favorite.
Yeah, for sure. The Mike Mathatha, and he's going to stay Mike from now on. He is no longer Blood Diamond. He's let me down multiple times now. I thought that I was going to get that TKO in round 2. Just did not look good. And then the parlay was my biggest play of the night. Nunez and Ankalaev both seemed to cover their price tag in the parlay. So felt good about it. I ended up the night 0.69 units positive with an 11% return on investment. And like I said, as long as we're both in the green, I think we're happy. Kicking it off in our main event, we have Thiago Santos taking on Jamahal Hill at light heavyweight. Seems like a matchup that's going to be guaranteed fireworks. You got Thiago Santos with one of the coolest tattoos in the division versus some of the worst tattoos in the division in Jamahal Hill. While Thiago's last few fights have kind of been a snooze fest, Hill has never been in a boring fight. And then since Hill broke his arm in that Paul Craig fight, he's put together 2 back-to-back knockouts over Jimmy Crute and Johnny Walker. Mm-hmm. And I think the type of pressure that Hill brings, he'll be one of the first guys to just deliberately walk into the fire with Santos. Magomed, Jones, Rakic, were all kind of complacent standing on the outside of Santos and having just like a kickboxing sparring match. For the most part, too afraid to commit, or maybe just has too much respect for the power of Thiago Santos. I doubt that's going to be the case with Hill. He's one of these guys that's kind of willing to eat a punch to give a punch. He relies on his speed and power to catch you before you catch him. I'm not 100%, but I do think that you can kind of call him a right-hand dominant southpaw. He's got that mean check right hook that he landed on Crute. When he wants to throw his biggest power shot, he'll switch stances and throw that overhand right that he landed on Walker. And he can just kind of keep you honest with that straight left that he throws in southpaw. Santos going to finally get the fight that I think he wants. Zero threat of the takedown. Hill's willing to engage with him. At 38 years old, I'm not necessarily chomping at the bit to bet Santos in any UFC matchup, but this line just continues to widen, and I feel like I can make a case for Thiago. End of the day, he's still one of the most powerful guys in the organization. This fight is going to take place on the feet, and he's going to be fighting a guy that's willing to engage instead of sticking to the outside. Finally, I got to point out that Hill might not be the cream of the crop when it comes to athleticism, man. Sure, he is athletic, but I think we see about 10 to 15 extra pounds of gut on that guy. You look at the last few guys Santos has lost to, Ankalaev, Rakic, Jones, that's quite a bit of difference and might be one of the many reasons why I don't think that Hill will ever crack the top 5 of the division. Minus or plus 260 is my magic number on Thiago Santos. I think that he wins this 35% of the time, and that would give me enough of an edge to make this play.
So, man, a lot of reiteration for me. I think you can make a case for the underdog here as well. All signs, when you look at it one points to Jamahal Hill, though. The younger, the faster, lighter on the feet, like you talked about. The UFC's prospect who's not in boring fights versus a guy who's been in these snooze fests lately. But at the same time, man, minus 290, we're getting at almost 75%. And, I know we only get a one sample size on Saturday, but you got to approach it like you're playing this more than one time. And I think Thiago Santos really does have potential to make this a much closer fight. I listed like the intangibles, athleticism, things that Jamahal has, but his boxing, it is crisp. The hands are accurate. They're fast. But he's already gotten that taste of humble pie once before, and I don't know if it's going to be the last time that it is the case for him. Some of the things you mentioned, take it with a grain of salt for me. I don't know the guy, but he doesn't look like the strongest guy at light heavyweight. He doesn't look like he's in the best shape. And then all the blunt smoking and everything online, nothing against it, man, but, there's definitely areas that I think you have to clean up if you really do want to make the top of the division. And he just kind of still seems a little bit young and immature and not at that age and not at that time yet. For Santos, like you said, 38 years old, knee injuries, so hard to back him. He hasn't looked the best, but then you look at who he's lost to. Glover, who just lost the belt, and Rakic and Ankalaev, to the best two light heavyweights on the planet, if you want my honest opinion. He throws such low volume, again, making him so hard to back. But he has so much power that he almost makes his opponent tentative as well, And I think this fight is really going to depend upon how Jamahal Hill approaches it. Is he going to take that approach where he gets in your face and is willing to throw down? Because if he is, I think he has a chance to get knocked out here. But if he is willing to play that point fighting game on the outside, stick behind his long jab, make it another snooze fest like Santos has been in, I think he's a more accurate striker and could potentially do that. But at minus 290, I'm not backing him. In our co-main event, we have Vicente Luque taking on Geoff Neal. And finally, like I said, UFC is finally giving me a good co-main event on a fight night to break down. Well deserving of this co-main event spot. As far as breakdown-wise, I think it's fairly easy. And, I think it's, like I said, Striker's Delight in the intro. Not many one's going to have a big wrestling game plan, submission upside. But if it is, you got to think it's Vicente Luque. And if anybody's had, success wrestling like Bilal, Muhammad, Michael Chiesa, twice the wrestlers of Geoff Neal. And then even when you want to look at who's outpointed Vicente Luque to decisions, we're talking about Leon Edwards and Wonderboy, two of the best distance strikers on the roster, not even just in welterweight. And it's going to be hard, I think, for Geoff Neal to replicate that same success here. When Vicente Luque wasn't on his back last time, I thought he looked really good. He had good forward pressure, was swapping stances, really cutting Bilal off, was beating up that lead leg, throwing the body kicks. And it was just a tricky opponent, because Bilal likes to implement that wrestling. It took some of the game plan and some of the weapons that Vicente likes to use away. With Geoff Neal, I like him, I really do, but I think the skill set's a bit limited. He doesn't really offer him any other paths to victory than TKO. Even he's so low volume at sometimes it makes him hard to win decisions. The Ponzinibbio fight, the Neil Magny fight, and then you combine it with the health scare, the DUI charges. Just doesn't seem like MMA's been the first priority for this guy lately. Don't want to dog on Fortis MMA at all, but it's a lot of 45ers and stuff there. He's training with Uriah Hall as his main training opponent. And he's just the top dog guy, while Luque splits time at Sanford, one of the best gyms in the world, getting phenomenal looks. So, I like Vicente Luque here. I got him by decision, laying 1.5 units on him. Think you got to play on him as well, don't you?
Yeah, man. So I've got a little more than I'd like. I have 2.75 units, and I felt a little bit stronger about it earlier in the week than I do now. But like you said, we got a good line at minus 164 on Luque, so I do like it for the time being. I've heard arguments on both sides that there will be a wrestling aspect, but I tend to agree with you. I don't think that this is a fight that's going to see the mat. You've got Neal, who I do think has a better traditional wrestling base and probably does have more upside to get the fight to the mat and wind up on top. But Luque, like you said, has good enough Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I do think that Neal is smart enough to know that his chances of winning the fight are way better standing than trying to avoid a submission attempt the whole fight. My biggest hesitancy in backing Luque is the pattern of losses over his career. You talked about Leon Edwards, Stephen Thompson, and even Bilal, who took a different path, but they're all more polished strikers than Luque. Luque is someone who thrives in the heat of fire, and he wants to make it ugly. He's got that big block head, which is awful for dodging punches, but great for absorbing them, and an ungodly chin to back it. I will be extremely upset if we see Neal start to work his jab and get Luque to start chasing him. I also think Neal will have the speed edge, but I do only think that that's going to be a factor for the first round. We do see Neal start to fall off the later the fight goes. And even in Neal's last fight, Saif Said, yes, was in the third round trying to convince him that he's still got that dog in him, that he can still continue with this fight, and that doesn't tell me a lot, or that doesn't show me a lot that I like as far as confidence levels for Neal. And Luque's the type of fighter that I want to back against somebody who has questionable confidence. He's the type of guy that'll bring you to the point where you either fight with your back up against the wall, or you shell up and take the easy way out. That forward pressure of Luque over the course of 15 minutes should be enough to break Neal. The fact that Luque has a black belt to fall back on, it gives me more confidence that when the going gets tough for Neal, he has less routes to change up the fight when takedowns aren't an option. I might look at a hedge spot with Neal by decision, as I do not think that he's going to knock out Luque, but all the polished strikers that have beat Luque in the past have all won by decision. So I'm happy with the Luque money line right now, but you can get like plus 400 on on Geoff Neal by decision, and I think that that's a perfect hedge spot. I'm hoping that FanDuel comes out with like 20 points higher and gives us plus 420, but I think plus 400 is good enough to play.
Yeah, man, took the words right out of my mouth on that hedge spot. If that's going to be plus 350, plus 400, you absolutely got to hit that with Luque's durability. I think that forward pressure is going to negate a whole lot of those kicks and everything thrown from Geoff, even stifle that volume a whole lot more. Glad we're both on Vicente Luque here.
For my fight of the night, I have chose Ariane Lipski versus Priscila Cachoeira. Okay. Lipski is my girl, so I'm going to try and be as unbiased as possible here. She's a decent fighter at best. Definitely not the most technical, but she do got that dog in her, man. On the feet, she's ready to stand and bang with anyone. And in her last fight, she did seem to slow things down some from her usual bum rush. Definitely more methodical with her strikes and prepared for those takedown attempts. When it comes to her ground game, I actually don't mind it if she's on top. Good control, aggressive with her submission attempts. It's when she winds up on bottom that's the problem, man. She does not have a good defensive guard or a good get-up game, and just lacks that urgency that I like to see from fighters on their back on the ground, or in bad spots on the ground. She's taking on someone who I mentioned, who would have to be mentioned when discussing the most powerful strikers in the division. Priscila is a wrecking ball, if nothing else, a -3 strike differential and nearly absorbing 8 significant strikes per minute, which has to be top 10 worst striking defense in the UFC. But she got that dog in her too, man. I expect Cachoeira to take the center of the octagon immediately and try and put that pressure on Lipski from the jump. It seems to me like both these girls are the hammer in the majority of their fights, so I'm definitely curious who takes control early. Stylistically, neither girl is great at initiating the takedown. Usually in their fights, if it goes to the ground, they're defending takedowns from their opponents or slipping on a kick. With the willingness to trade from both girls, I do expect someone to go down before the final bell, and I doubt that this will be the most technical fight, but I do expect it to be exciting, so that's why I had to take this for my fight of the night. I don't know who's going to come out on top, but with both girls, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a win, whether it's eye gouge, grab the fence. I do think that somebody's going out, and you can get the under 2.5 at plus 175.
Yeah, not often do you see women's 125ers opening up a main card, but this could be a damn good fight between these two girls. I think if you want to pick from me, I think I'm going to side with the favorite in Ariane Lipski. I think she's just a better, more technical fighter here. Good Muay Thai, younger, longer, faster, better footwork, and you brought up the defensive holes of, Cachoeira. She's definitely going to be there to hit. Lipski much better defensively herself. And if there is somebody with maybe an offensive wrestling advantage, It might be Lipski, man, but I don't know how much you can take from her in the Mandy Bone fight, you know. With Cachoeira, it's one thing and one thing only. Live up to the zombie girl name. Just walk forward. Be willing to eat a few shots to land some of your own. And that really does start to wear on girls later in fight. Make them back up and, you know, exhaust them. And it's an exciting style. It weighs on the judges' scorecards. But I don't see a lot of skill coming from Priscila. But low-level women's MMA, it often doesn't take a lot of skill to win some of these fights either. You know, again, pick's going to be Lipski. I'm not going to have any action on it. I 100% see where a finish could be there. I think Lipski is going to win by decision. I think Cachoeira's durability is just going to be there. But while it lasts, I think this fight's going to be a good one. For my fight of the night, I'm going to go with Jason Witt taking on Josh Quinlan. Quinlan, new guy in town, fresh off a quick finish on the Contender Series, but he's rather inexperienced, man. He's 5-0, he's never been the distance, and he's coming off a 9-month USADA suspension, so quite surprised the UFC still gave him his chance in a contract here. The guy's never fought any high-level competition in his life. Logan Urban was coming in on short notice on the Contender Series, and we were looking at Josh Quinlan like minus 300 favorite there. The fight prior in LFA, he was like a minus 430. And you'd see that first round knockout on the Contender Series, and a lot of people think he's just this wrecking ball in round one, but to be honest with you, watch him through his tape, he's not. He likes to keep his range. He'll throw a lot of kicks from the outside. He's patient in his approach early, and he really likes to set up the right hand later on. With Witt, dude's alternated wins and losses coming into UFC, into some superstition. He's due a win here as an underdog. But I'll never argue about this guy being an underdog really in his fight, you know. A gust of wind and he does the chicken dance. Been knocked out 6 times, submitted twice. The guy's been finished in every single one of his pro losses. But there is that ever so slightly chance that he shows up like he did in the Barberina fight with just tremendous durability. And I think he has taken on a very untested prospect here who, even fighting low-level competition, has shown some moments of danger. In the fight with Dallas Jennings, 3-1 Dallas Jennings, he's hurt bad in round 2. He's up against the fence, taking some good shots from the clinch. And then a prior fight to that against Joe Burchegg, he's taken down, immediately gives up the mount, immediately just spins and gives up his back. And man, I don't know if Jason Witt is the one to capitalize on these positions, but to lay minus 200 something on a debutant is just not something I'm willing to do here. The fight 100% has fireworks written all over it, though. Josh is going to come out here and just add to the knockout losses of Witt, probably. Or Witt goes out there and gives him the vet lesson. I think there's a high finishing upside here. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Quinlan has never been to decision. Taking his inside the distance prop, it might as well be his money line. So I do think that that's the only way that you can play him. But like you said, like bringing him on after him popping on the Contender Series and then giving him Jason Witt, who has the 6 knockout losses, I think the UFC knows what they're doing. And I think if it were up to them, he's going to be winning this fight. So I do see him as the rightful favorite, and I do think he's going to get it done inside the distance. Like you said, Jason Witt could show up in rare form, but I don't think that that's going to happen. For my fighter to watch, I am picking Smiling Sam Alvey, man. Winless in his last 8 bouts. He is set to make his return in the octagon one last time on Saturday before he hopefully retires. He's always been a fan favorite, funny, goofy guy that has the body that makes everyone feel like they could be a UFC fighter, man. He's been able to eke out some decent wins in his UFC tenure, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that all 10 of his UFC wins, none of those fighters are on the current roster. I know one thing is true throughout all of the losses he's faced, though, and that's that he fights for your money, and he usually makes it a whole lot closer than anyone expects it to be. Span, Daun Jung, Wellington Turman are the obvious ones that come to mind, but he just can't catch a break with these judges, constantly on the wrong side of these split decisions. And I think the biggest contributing factor is his body language inside the octagon. He's almost developed this like possum style of attack where he baits his opponents into opening up. And then, bam, check left hook, and now you're wobbled. And he's got this deceiving power that's slow but effective striking that he throws, and it just more or less catches his opponents off guard. Realistically, I don't think that Alvey has a better than 30% chance to beat anyone in the UFC anymore. But, Olajaychik down a weight class, being a mediocre fighter himself, I think Alvey has a better shot beating him at 185 than he had a chance of beating any of the 205ers that he's been taking to split decisions. Plus 450 seems a little bit wide. 18% implied odds, and I want to say that he wins this fight 24% of the time. I'm really close to taking a stab, and for what it's worth, there's a reason why the UFC is continuing to allow him to go on this 8-fight losing streak. Never have we seen the UFC give people the easy way out. It's usually they try and give him to some, like monster Nate on their Hamzat. Way out. Yeah, Nate Diaz Hamzat is a perfect example. But the UFC has continued to give him these, quote unquote, winnable fights so that he could ride off into the sunset. And I think that that's something to take into consideration. 8 fights, all these split decisions. One of them's going to turn his way, right? I think this one could be it.
No, plus 450, it is wild. You add in Olajaychik, who's just an absolute monster in round 1 and then fades off so bad. Now you add a weight cut to it. Mm-hmm. I might live bet Sam Alvey degenerately, but I don't know pre-fight if you're going to get any action on me from Sam Alvey. Hell, he is definitely the fighter to watch on Saturday. Flopping over to mine, fighter to watch, women's flyweight, tough finale. I'm going to go with Brogan Walker. After Claire Guthrie had the awful weight cut and lost to Juju, I thought Brogan kind of became the front winner to win the show and to keep your eyes on her on Saturday here. She has triple the fight experience of Juju, and it's at triple the level of really experience as well. She shows 2 losses, one to Pearl Gonzalez, who was in the UFC, one to Erin Blanchfield, who is one of the best 125 prospects people like right now, and then a win over Miranda Maverick, who is worlds better than Juliana Miller, in my opinion. Think she's the more technical fighter of the two. She fights southpaw, likes to keep her rein, stays active with the lead hand, and she's going to be a whole lot stronger than Juliana Miller. I've been tempted all week to take a shot at her, but the style of Juju, it's hard to prepare for, man. It's much like Priscila Cachoeira. She just keeps coming at you, and she won't stop. She's tough as hell, and she's lanky. She looks to clinch you up, look to work her way to the back. Her style is appealing in the eyes of the judges as well. It's a low-level women's MMA fight, and I think I just want to be smarter with my units. My gut tells me Brogan's going to take a decision here, and at plus money, she's someone to keep her eyes on. But I think the public really likes Juju, man.
For my underdog of the week, I will be taking Thiago Santos. Kind of on the fence of who I was going to pick this week between Granger and Santos.
Got a shot on Granger.
Yeah, for sure. But I think Santos is the person that you'd much rather hear about. I do think that he's going to win inside the distance, so that's something to take into consideration. His money line right now is plus 240. You can get him inside the distance plus 375. Yeah. And I do think that that's the more likely path to victory. I think that his path to victory is by knockout, and just the willingness to engage from Hill is something that I think feeds right into Thiago Santos's power. So getting him at this price tag, especially with his best path to victory being nearly 4-1, I do think that he has a very good shot, and that's why he's my underdog.
Yeah, man, you won't catch me parlaying Jamahal Hill at these odds, and if he is willing to engage and not play that pitter-patter game on the outside like people have, he has potential to get knocked out, absolutely. Best path, 4-1, great odds. Man, got to go underdog. It's Jason Witt, and I know I could do all this talking up of Jason Witt, and the fight could be over in 10 seconds with him unconscious. And, you really do have to take that in consideration on how many units you want to lay on him. But to me, Quinlan himself has done zero to deserve being north of minus 200 here. It's more of a fade on Jason Witt, than it is on what you see out of Quinlan. So I think I'm going to take a small shot on Jason Witt. He's a veteran. The dude's fought much stiffer competition. He's got the wrestling upside with big wrestling unknowns for Josh Quinlan. And I talked about him being in dangerous spots on the regional scene against far less caliber fighters. But some other things I noticed on tape that I think is going to help Jason with the wrestling is Quinlan likes to stay on the outside. He's real close to the cage. We're in a small apex cage, and I don't think Jason Witt is going to have to chase very far to get in on some of the double legs up against the cage. He also throws a ton of naked kicks. You'll even hear it in the commentating on the regional scenes. He doesn't really set any of his kicks up with his hands. I think that's just going to offer Jason Witt opportunities to land one of those takedowns. So, because of the knockout losses, again, I won't advise a super heavy bet on Jason Witt. I think he's minus one or plus 175, something like that. And if you can get Quinlan inside the distance or something, you might even be able to hedge and make money either way. But to have Witt here at only like 33, 35%, I think it's a little bit off, man.
For my prop, I will be taking the Priscila Cachoeira versus Ariane Lipski under 2.5, or fight doesn't go the distance, whichever one's more appealing when the odds come out. I do think that both of these girls, I mean, we got the Queen of Violence versus Zombie Girl. I do think that somebody's going down, and I don't think that there's going to be a lot of shooting for takedowns or clinches, really.
Okay.
So I expect him to just throw down, see who's the tougher girl, battle of the Brazilians, and I think we're getting an awesome price tag on it.
They don't put women's flyweights open up the main card for a reason. I think the UFC is expecting a finish here as well, and if you're getting a big plus money number, take it. Not getting a big plus money number on my prop, I'm going to give you Terrence McKinney versus Gonzalez under 1.5 rounds, and has it at minus 225, but I do think that 70% of time this fight hits under 1.5, man. I think it's a setup fight for Terrence McKinney, if you want my honest opinion. I think it's a setup fight for him to get a first-round knockout, and the odds makers have that first-round finish at minus 200, so they seem to think so as well. Advantages pretty much for Terrence are everywhere. Size and length for the weight class, athleticism, good wrestling, and, dude, the jiu-jitsu is getting better, but, I mean, dropping Drew Dober the way he did and then seeing Drew Dober eat those shots from Alves, McKinney's got some power behind him, man, but he's an absolute glass cannon. If he doesn't put you away in the first 3 or 4 minutes, he fades bad, and he almost kind of quits on himself, becoming a pretty easy guy to get out of there. For Gonzalez, you're talking about a guy who's knocked out in, round 2 by Jim Miller, not even round 1. A guy who's lost to Rafa Garcia, Humberto Bandenet. Rafa Garcia is still under 10 fights, I think. Bandenet went like 1-3 in the UFC with absolutely horrendous losses. The guy's been knocked out. He's been submitted. I think the only way he wins this fight again is if Terrence blows his wad. So it's a complete mismatch. I want to take advantage of it in some way to find a way to play this minus 1,000, and I think the under 1.5 minus 225 is the way to go.
Moving on to our best bet, I'll be taking the Vicente Luque money line. I've already put almost 3 units on it, and I really do feel like Luque's the perfect fighter to fight somebody in Geoff Neal's current position. Neal doesn't have the confidence that I'd really want in a fighter, and Vicente Luque is going to bring him into the fire. I think that his striking, although it might be a little bit slower off the jump, I think that just the constant forward pressure will overwhelm Neal by the end of the fight, and I do think that he's going to be covering that 65% price tag. Vicente Luque money line is my best bet.
Yeah, I got some action on his money line as well. I think he able to cut off the cage, put Geoff on the back foot, who typically doesn't really take the center of the octagon himself. Mm-hmm. Vicente will. Mm-hmm. Take away a lot of his weapons. I like that bet on Vicente Luque. Best bet for me is Zach Pauga. I got it at minus 225 on BetMGM. That's 70%. I love that line. I was not wanting to lay minus 250 or more on some of the other books. Mm-hmm. So, man, laid 2.5 units here to win a little over a unit. I think he was clearly the best talent on that show by far. Usman is literally signed to the Ultimate Fighter off of getting finished, and so I think Flat Out Brothers' name had some influence, and that's all I got to say about Usman. I think, Zach prior to this was a light heavyweight, and I think he'll probably drop back down, but you see that time and time again, fighters just taking a, Ultimate Fighter a weight class up as their way to get in. But, he's so much more skilled everywhere, but being that light heavyweight, being a little bit smaller, the speed advantage he has in all these fights, it's just unreal. He was the number 1 pick on the show. He trains at Elevation Fight Team, big training partner of Curtis Blades. Gets on his front foot early, man, puts you on your back with the pressure. I think he's going to put Mo Usman up against the cage, land that jab. He loves to set up, shots to the body. Clean left hook, man. I just feel like the skills are everywhere. Favor Zach Pauga. You do got to worry that if it goes to a decision, the name of Usman makes it a bit sketchy that they want to give it to him. But I think Zach Pauga does enough to easily win a 30-27 and might even put Mo Usman out of here.
Moving on to our quick pick section, we start off the night in the bantamweight division between Mara Bueno Silva taking on Stephanie Egger. This one's a tough one to call. Both these girls are finishers. I think that this is another one that could end inside the distance. The line is not favoring my pick, but I do think I'm going to pick Mara Bueno Silva. I think if it gets to the ground, she's got a little better submissions, although she is more likely to wind up on bottom.
Yeah. Stephanie's got that judo background that makes her, interesting as soon as the fight does hit the mat. But, man, Bueno Silva is just mean, and I think she'll do enough to probably get the nod. Next fight up, 15s, 115, Corey McKenna taking on Miranda Granger. Size is everything in women's MMA, man. Give me this big dog and Miranda Granger.
Yeah, we're on the same side there. I'm also taking Miranda Granger. Moving on to the welterweight division, Jason Witt versus Josh Quinlan. I'm going to go with the UFC. I think that they're really wanting Quinlan to get the win here, and I think he will.
Yeah, Jason Witt's got more knockout losses than Josh Quinlan has fights. Give me the veteran Jason Witt. Moving up 170, Takashi Sato taking on Brian Battle. Brian Battle dropping down to 170 after winning the Ultimate Fighter at 185. So it makes it interesting. He's a decision machine. Sato just had his back from Gunner for like 15 minutes and didn't give up the submission, so that's kind of impressive. Brian Battle by decision.
Yeah, I'm also going to lean Battle here. Don't have anything on it. Moving on, we go to the lightweight division with Terrence McKinney versus Eric Gonzalez. Got to go with T-Rex here.
Yeah, T-Rex first round submission.
Okay.
Submission. 85, Mikhail Olazechek taking on Sam Alvey. You know, it would be nice to see Sam Alvey right off in the sunset, but Mikhail is a motherfucker in round one. I think he goes out there and gets put Sam away.
I will likely bet Sam Alvey at the current odds, but if we're just picking winners, I think Olajaychuk wins. Moving on to the flyweight division, Lipski versus Cachoeira. This one's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Cachoeira here. I think the fight's going to stay on the feet, and I like her durability if they're just getting into a slugfest. So I'm going to go with the underdog here in Cachoeira.
Low levels women's MMA, it's 100%. If you're going to make a play, dog or pass, I'm going to side with the favorite, but no play from me. Augusto Sakai taking on Sergey Spivak. Fight we really didn't talk about. Sakai kind of been on the decline, but I also don't think Spivak is that talented of a striker and offers, the same success. And he's more of a wrestler. Never really seen Sakai bullied in the wrestling. I think I'm going to take Sergey Spivak, but I'm not laying minus 200 something.
Yeah, this could be a really good buy low spot for Augusto Sakai coming off of the 3 knockout losses. Like you said, that's not the same type of game plan that Sergey Spivak's going to bring in. I kind of liken Sergey Spivak to Marcin Tybura, and if that fight goes similar, then I do think that Augusto Sakai has a good shot. I'm going to take Sakai here. I think it's a good buy low spot. But we're just picking winners. All right, I think if this is out of 100 times, I think Sergey wins this more, so I'll pick Sergey as the winner. Flyweights is our next one with the tournament championship for Tough. It is Juliana Miller taking on Brogan Walker. I'm Team Juju for this one.
I don't hate it, man. Her style is awesome to watch, but I think Brogan is just going to be a little bit better everywhere. Zach Palga taking on Mo Usman for the heavyweight Tough finale. Man, best bet, Zach Palga. I think he's better everywhere this fight's going to go.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Zach Palga. Just hope this doesn't go to the judges.
Right.
In our co-main event, welterweights, we see Vicente Luque taking on Geoff Neal. Luque is our best bet, and I think he'll take it on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Luque as well. In the main event, we're going to go Thiago Santos versus Jamahal Hill. We see one fight between them, not a big sample size. It's dog or pass betting for me, but I think Jamahal Hill takes this one on Saturday, man. He seems to be riding that wave right now.
Yeah, so Thiago Santos plus 145 against Alexander Rakic, a minus 250 against Glover Teixeira. I think that this is a super wide line, and I'm going to take Thiago Santos to win on Saturday.
Good stuff. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. There's 12 fights on the books for Saturday. Hopefully they all make weight, and see you guys next week.
Peace.